What's up there, workforce? Chris here with Work to Game, and I've been sitting here hobbying on a nice, lovely Sunday, and I came across this news article. I was just kind of taking a break, reading some stuff, and E3, and something tied to E3 here. So I don't know exactly who ESA and all of that. So I don't know exactly who's at fault here, but basically the private details of over 2,000 game industry people were leaked. This is everything from content creators to video producers to, journalists, just the whole spectrum of everybody that would have been on this E3 kind of mailing list. And that would have included everything from possibly home addresses to phone numbers, emails, anything that they would have given to E3 in trust, right? Saying, hey, maybe I want to press pass or I want to be notified when there's news upcoming or anything like that. They would have shared this information. It's been leaked. Now, obviously, this leak has since been like they've fixed it and they've removed it and all that, but that information is still out there. Whoever downloaded that still has it. And once something's on the internet, it's kind of always on the internet because somebody somewhere will have downloaded it. And so assuming that, okay, I took mine down doesn't mean that somebody else isn't holding a copy. And I think the reason I found this interesting and the reason that I thought this was more of an interesting discussion is in the context of we've been talking about doxing lately. We've been talking about, is it a hard time to be a content creator and what is going on just in gaming. As gaming becomes a bigger industry and there's more eyeballs focused on it, it ups the stakes all around. So you have reward pools being bigger than ever before. You have streamers being paid to jump platforms bigger than ever before. But the other side of that is you have, more death threats than ever before. You have more doxing and swatting and all of this than ever before. And so as just the stakes in general increase, who is held accountable and what is the enforcement mechanism for that? So how do we decide if something was by accident, if somebody was actually hurt? Does it matter if they were hurt or not? Because there's a couple ways you can interpret that. Like in sports, it doesn't matter if I win or not. If I'm caught cheating or using steroids or anything like that, my record is still removed. There's a punishment regardless of the outcome. But when you talk about many criminal acts, success of the act is inherent. So there's a big difference between attempted murder and actually murdering somebody. So accidentally leaking somebody's information, but nobody getting hurt, could logically be held to a lesser degree than releasing somebody's information and it resulting in property damage or, emotional damage or actually in physical somebody getting hurt as a result of that. And so the question is like, who's at fault? And then what's the correction mechanism? If my credit card information is leaked from a major retailer, that retailer oftentimes has to take steps, like it has to protect my private identity. So they have to pay for me to have like basically some service out there protect my numbers, right? Whatever that's associated with, Social Security or otherwise. And then should there be something down the line, they've got something in place that's making sure that it's corrected. So they're watching my credit and things like that. Which even our credit companies have had issues in the past. So the Equifax thing was really scary because they have just so much information on you. And the line that I read here, and I assume there was more context than this, but the line here that on its own that is kind of scary is it says, we apologize for the inconvenience and have already taken steps to ensure that it will not happen again. And if you released my information, that doesn't matter. Like you still have the issue of you on a public forum released my address. It's possible that services like that end up with birth dates or, all these different things that can act as security measures to stop somebody from finding me. You have identity theft. You have people who disagree with you, especially when you talk about press, because and even if you lump in content creators into press, so even if you lump in streamers, YouTubers, all of that into press, anybody who has a public opinion, right, that they're introducing out into the space because they say, hey, I've informed myself on this thing and I would like to now share that with you, they have a risk of having an opinion that somebody doesn't like. And anytime somebody doesn't like it, how they respond has a huge spectrum. And the ones we're worried about here is all the way on this end where they're going to lash out in some way that is way disproportionate with somebody simply using words. So me saying, I don't like game A, or I don't like, things 1, 2, 3 about game A, can cause fans of that game to then lash out at that person. And so releasing this information gives that group of people something that they may not have had otherwise. And they might have. I mean, IP addresses and all sorts of things are incredibly capable of accidentally doxing yourself, but that is very different than me sharing this. Imagine if for a second in a step to protect myself from doxing, I use, VPNs and things like that, and I have an office set up, and Brian and I do all of our recordings from an office. Well, finding that office is very different than knowing where I live. And so now, as a result, maybe E3 had my actual mailing address. Well, that's a huge problem. And so how much of the onus is on us to say, okay, now I have to have everybody that has my address really just has my business address, and somebody would have to at least follow me from work. They'd have to at least take that extra step to get where I live. But how much of that is on me? And then how much of that is on the people who did the leaking? And does any of it matter if nothing bad happens? If nothing bad happens, does it all just blow over, or is it still a problem? Am I still entitled to and have a right to my privacy? I just thought this was a really interesting set of news to kind of come out as we look at everything going on in the industry, the good and the bad. There's a lot of really good things going on in gaming right now. But the other side of that is like, everybody know Ninja has a lot of money now. So his address is suddenly a lot more valuable to somebody that would mean him harm. And this 16-year-old kid that just won the prize pool that was bigger than a lot of the like sports prize pools. That kid's privacy just became incredibly valuable. And so the steps to protect that kid, while 10 days before that tournament, they may or may not have been worth a lot of money, now they are. And so that protection needs to have been consistent the whole time, or somebody can say, hey, I found this post from last week that gives away his address, and now that address is valuable to me. So the protection can't just start once it's needed. It needs to have been there the whole time. And I'm really just wondering who the protection falls on. Is there a regulatory body that needs to do so? If so, how do we deal with the fact that this is an international problem? If it's not done by a regulatory body, how do we put the onus on the people who accidentally release the information, or put the information in an environment where it is hacked and we find that that wasn't their fault? Like, nothing is unhackable, but you should at least be expected to take reasonable steps. If I'm driving your kid to school for you and I'm following all the traffic laws and the kid is strapped up and strapped in and they're all ready to go, and I'm driving safe and I'm driving on routes that I knew and I'm doing everything right and I'm in a very safe car, I can't stop somebody from T-boning me. So if somebody slams their car into mine and your kid gets hurt, that can't be my fault as long as I did all the right things. But then in that case, now we can lay blame with the person who hit me. How does that work in this case? Like, this is so much more abstract. How do I go back and track where the person got my information? And if my information was released 3 times, is the only one that's important the one that the person who hurt me used? The person in that other car, metaphorically. Is that the only one that matters? I just thought it was interesting. It's something I've been kind of thinking on, and it's incredibly frustrating to see things like this, because it makes you want to just ball up and just never go outside again and never talk to people. And that's a really sad world. Like, if we don't have content creators, if we don't have this idea that, well, they should have known, they decided to be public personalities. Well, many of the people on here, they're financial advisors or analysts or something, or they're an investor, or, they work for a journalistic outlet. And so depending on what they do for that journalistic outlet, they may not have their names on articles, right? They imagine one of those just brought his cameraman. The cameraman didn't ask for that. So like, even if for a second you just suspend the argument that like celebrities have it coming, which I don't agree with, there's still people affected by this every day that didn't ask for that. You still have the parents of that kid that won all that money, whose lives just changed whether or not they have access to that money. You still have people who are related to celebrities. You still have people who work at places that are in the public eye, even though their job is not, where they work in an industry that has the public eye, because most do, even though their job or their role within that industry is not. And so you can't just victim blame this whole thing away, but I don't know how you set up an enforcement mechanism that's fair and is willing to take in context, because context is incredibly complex here. How did it get leaked? Who was at fault? Is it one person? Is it the entity? If it's the entity, how do we stop whatever penalty we put on something as large as E3 from stopping a startup? At the same time, we don't want a startup to have free reign. Oh, well, you're a small conference, so you're allowed to leak their info. What are you going to do? Like, that can't be okay either. And I don't know. It's really got my brain moving, and it just was something to think about as I'm working on my Sunday Fun Day hobby time here. And I just thought maybe you guys would find it interesting too. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking. Who's at fault here? Is that the wrong way to look at it? What do we need to do moving forward to protect people so that there's a reasonable expectation of privacy and safety when dealing with the internet? My name is Chris with Work2Game. Have a fantastic Sunday, and I will see you next time.
We really appreciate you watching. We really, really, really do. We really appreciate you watching. We really, really do. A 30-second end screen is so long. I don't know how to fill all this time.